Welcome.
Not ready.
Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 109, the podcast where we talk about photography, video, and anything that's got anything to do with any of that, really. And just to say, we are glad you've joined us again this week. We really appreciate you being here. Just wanted to throw that in there. 109 episodes later.
Pretty true in one go.
I know.
Well done.
That's very short.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, actually, no, it wasn't the first go.
No, it wasn't, as you would have just seen on the video.
Anyway, so we're back. It's very late.
It is.
Today.
Yeah, which is why we've moved on to whiskey.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not whiskey, apple juice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just because the movies make believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a busy week, man. It has been, as we always say.
Yeah. I can't really think of what I've done, but it has been busy.
Yeah.
I've got a flat tire. That's what I got. That's what happened to me.
Really?
Yep. I was just leaving I had a gig on. This was a Friday night gig, and I was rushing, obviously, and went out to the car, and my rear tire had a flat.
Oh.
So I had to get all of my gear out of the car to get access to the space saver wheel, and quickly change that and load it all back up. Obviously, I was filthy. My shirt was filthy. My jeans were filthy. So I had to rub myself down, have a bit of a wash, and
wait a minute. Say that again.
I had to rub myself down. Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
Well.
And got that sorted. So I'm finally getting that changed in a couple of days.
Did you have to put like an emergency wheel on or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, maximum 50 miles an hour in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not that anyone actually does that, but I do.
Do you remember?
So I don't trust them.
A similar thing happened to me. Was it quite some time? Well, last year at some point. Do you remember I did this photo shoot in Birmingham? And as I roll up on location in Birmingham, I realized I have a flat tire. And so it's a similar thing, I had to put an emergency tire on and then traipse all the way back from Birmingham to Watford on
Space Saver.
a space saver.
Jesus.
Oh, God.
Sod that.
It took forever. It took like 3 hours or something. Yeah, because you can't go on the motorway,
Mm.
So yeah, that was interesting.
Do you know what's annoyed me most is that not that I got a flat or that I'm gonna have to buy a new tire or anything like that. It happens, right? It's what it is. But my alloys are all scratched up on that wheel now because for whatever reason, whatever coating was on it must have been not good, or I don't really know what the right term for it would be. But every time I touched it with the wrench, every time it touched it, not knocked it or hit it, touched it, it would flake something off. So I don't really know what's going on there. So I'm going to get this done. So you should see the driver's side of my car right now. It just looks like a 50-year-old battered up car because there's a space saver on the rear. There's a little chunk of paint chipped out the driver's side door, and then my wing mirror. I knocked my wing mirror off a few weeks ago as well, which I still haven't replaced. So it just looks shit. It's a really nice car. It just looks awful.
Well, I had a similar experience when I opened the back door of my car earlier today because we went to Portsmouth Pride, where my stepson was organizing a stall for the co-op he works for. And as we went to, visit and say hello and take in some of the carnival atmosphere, although it was so windy, like it literally blew your brains out. It was that windy. So
it was a windy Pride.
It wasn't really that much fun.
No.
I lost my pride in the storm, basically.
Wow.
But so anyway, so my youngest daughter came with us, and she was in the rear of the car, and I hadn't really noticed. But when I opened the back today, it was like, a half-eaten sandwich over the back seat, and like wrappers, and like drinks bottles, and it's a whole lot. So yeah.
Pleasant.
Oh man. Anyway, I've got to clear it out because I've got some shoots coming up. So I need to bring it back to some kind of decent state.
What other news have I got this week? My C70 still isn't back, which is disappointing. So that's still sat with Canon. So we are again filming on the R6. And what was nice though, wasn't a huge difference in video quality once it was uploaded to YouTube.
So incidentally, when I was looking the YouTube version of it, if you are listening to the audio version, of course, be reminded that you can just hop over to YouTube and actually watch the whole thing in glorious pink and blue.
Pink and blue.
But yeah, I thought the image was really great.
Yeah. There were two differences actually. I'm just going to tighten this mic stand back up because it's drooping.
Drooping?
Yep. It's drooping. Happens when we get to our age. Yeah. The two real differences you could see is because the R6 is full frame, and the C70 is a Super 35, so it's cropped. Effectively, I think it's almost 1.6, a bit like APS-C.
Right, okay.
The bokeh on the R6, or more the depth of field really was different.
Right. Okay.
It was quite different actually.
More pleasant or less pleasant?
Depends what you like. It was just more of it. or less of it, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
So that was the only difference. And I keep constantly exploring how when you basically, if you use any video software on Mac and export a video, it will look different everywhere else on any software other than on Mac and VLC, unless you're using Final Cut. And the reason for that is a gamma shift that happens. There are reasons for it. I don't care to go into those because they're too complex for my little brain.
Okay.
And there are I've now read probably 40 or 50 different ways to overcome it.
So wait a minute. So this is quite interesting. So what you're saying is, if you edit a video on anything other than Final Cut
on a Mac,
then the end result will look different on different devices?
It will look... So if you were to then export the video, and if you were to view it on VLC,
okay,
which plays everything correctly always, it's the best piece of video viewing software there is, and it's free, it will look right.
Right.
It will look exactly how you intended it to look. If you view it on QuickTime, which most people do on a Mac,
mm-hmm,
it will look washed out in comparison.
Oh, really?
If you upload it to YouTube, it will look washed out in comparison.
Right.
So it looks like it loses contrast a bit. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's what it kind of looks like. So there are ways to kind of force it. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of videos around how to do that. And the best one I've seen, of course, I'd already started editing at this point, so it's hard to correct something once you've started. Is you need to tag the gamma on the output export as 709A, Rec 709A. I didn't look at it close enough. I just had to get it done, so I exported it, and I'll just live with any slight shift. It's whatever. You haven't got time to worry about that sort of stuff too much. You kind of compromise slightly in between. You add a little more contrast on what you're viewing, and you just let it go. You can't, because even if you correct it, it's always going to look slightly different everywhere anyway, depending on the monitor you're looking at, the screen you're looking at, the software you're using. It will always be the browser you're watching. It will always look slightly different but you want it to look as consistent as you can possibly make it. So I left it at that. So there's a chance that worked this time round. But this one, I'm going to edit it from, because what I saw in this particular video, and if I remember who it was and who did it, we will link to it because it is something everybody should know. You should, you need to do something up front to set how you're editing it before the export as well. So I'm just going to tweak around with that to see if I can get it right.
So, but if you edit something in Final Cut,
yeah, it doesn't make any difference as far as I know.
So then it'll look the same.
Yeah.
So why doesn't everyone then use Final Cut?
Because it's shit. What other answer did you expect to receive from me?
This episode is clearly not sponsored by Final Cut or Apple.
Because it's made by Apple. It's something to do with whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Someone out there far more intelligent than me will understand all of this inside out, and I'm sure can give a much better explanation than I can. I just know it causes a gamma shift. I know you need to do something in the setup of your project and export that will just, it's not a big deal. It's just clicking a couple of buttons to make it, force it into the right gamma space.
Well, I'm kind of glad I'm using Final Cut.
It's all right. You're one of the few people who do.
Well, I don't know if I'm one of the few people.
Few.
I think there's quite a few of us.
No, I'm going with few.
If you are a Final Cut user, a Final Cut Pro user, then get in touch. Yeah, I need some support. That's what I need. But I tell you what, talking about YouTube, I came across an awesome YouTube hack earlier today.
Whoa. No, go on.
All right, so I got a call this morning by my very frustrated wife, right? And so she's a teacher in a school, as you know, and their IT systems have changed. And so she called me up and she goes like, "Oh, do you know how I can get rid of the ads on YouTube videos?" And I'm like, "Well, why is that?" And she goes like, "Well, because before we had all the IT changes, they never showed the ads. And now they are, and it's annoying because they use YouTube quite a lot for educational purposes, in the class.
But they don't pay for it.
I don't know if they do. I have no idea. But it's early year stuff today. It's like singing and dancing kind of stuff. Anyway, so I said, okay, let me look into it, and I came across this really awesome hack, and it totally works. But it'll only work on Google Chrome.
Okay,
and it's super easy. All you've got to do is basically copy the video's URL into your browser, into Google Chrome, and add a full stop after the .com, because your YouTube URL is going to be youtube.com// blah, 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 so and so, right? So if you add a full stop, a period for our North American viewers, and listen, after the com of youtube.com, it will literally take away all the ads in that video.
Now, just for that, this was worth watching, wasn't it? And we're going to cut this out of the audio version. So it is that awesome. You have to go and watch the YouTube.
and let me tell you, if you are listening to the audio version and you want to try us out on YouTube, which I highly recommend, or I beg of you, so to say, and then whilst you're there, just hit the subscribe thingy and ring the bell and all that kind of stuff. But be assured or rest assured that we don't actually have adverts on our YouTube videos because we're just not big enough. We're not big enough for adverts. So we're too small. Anyway,
I'm going to beep out the whole bit where you described what you need to do, like you were swearing, like you were ranting.
Awesome. But I mean, that's such a simple fix. But it'll only work on Google Chrome. So I tried it on Safari, and I tried it on, I can't remember what else I tried it on. So my wife was trying it on
any other browsers?
Yeah, because my wife, they use
Opera.
No, they use Microsoft Edge. Yeah,
Edge. Yeah. Internet Explorer people.
Yeah. So it's what they have to use.
Edge and Internet Explorer.
I don't think I've ever used
Consignia and the Royal Mail.
Have you ever used Edge?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever used it.
Guess how much it sucks?
a lot.
Yeah. However, I kind of prefer it to Chrome these days.
I use Chrome.
That pains me to say that. I don't like Chrome.
Well, I mean, the only time I use Chrome,
I think it's really slow.
Well, the only time I use Chrome actually is when it actually, in fact, when I only use it for anything Camera Shake podcast related, because we have our share Google Drive and all that kind of stuff, so it integrates. And that's why I use it for. And so I've set shortcuts for all the different, if you are an avid listener of this podcast, then, be advised that you can find us on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, TikTok, and so on. And so when I update things on there, I have all the shortcuts set in the Chrome profile, the Camera Shake profile, and so it's easy for me to just click on that, and it'll, take me to. I don't know.
I know.
Okay. That's
making a speech.
I know. Anyway, so I mean that's the only time I use Chrome.
Yeah.
I found something really cool the other day. Google Fonts.
Mm-hmm.
So they also have a whole array, and this is for the graphic designers among us, of icons. So if you're designing something for your website or your flyer or whatever, and you want to use icons like I don't know, an email icon or or a World Wide Web icon or whatever icon you might look for. There's like a massive
World Wide Web icon.
A World Wide Web icon, yes.
Is it 95?
The interweb, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Netscape. Do you remember Netscape?
Yeah, I do. Netscape. My first proper job, I was using Netscape.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I never used Netscape, I don't think. Everyone back in those days, we're talking like late.
Well, that makes it sound like I'm older than you. It's not true, people.
I adopted technology very late.
Yeah.
No, but back in those days, I'm talking like late 90s, I guess. Yeah, late 90s.
Well, I was using Netscape in 2004.
Right. Okay. So late 90s. Definitely till the
and
early
then quite
2000s.
Quickly Firefox. At that point.
Yes. So basically, originally, I remember it was all Internet Explorer and Netscape.
Yeah.
And then there was a time when Netscape sort of seemed to disappear, and everyone used to use Internet Explorer. That was the one thing. And then for a variety of reasons, one was Mozilla Firefox that came out, but also the other thing, I think the EU had an issue with Microsoft packaging Internet Explorer as part of the operating system, and therefore keeping out competition and all that kind of stuff. And then so some competition laws came into effect, so they weren't allowed to do that anymore. The rest of it, so that then opened up the market.
So what does Apple do with Safari?
Well, the same thing, I guess. It's whatever. But Apple's in dire straits with the competition commission in the EU all the time anyway, as well. So I guess. But then it's a switch, and Chrome came along, and then everybody seemed to be shifting to Chrome. And now, Internet Explorer doesn't even exist anymore. And what's the market share of Edge? Does anybody actually use Edge?
Yeah. It's still widely used. It's got a lot better, to be fair. And I, as you know, I hate Microsoft quite. I hate their stuff a lot. But I've had to use Edge a lot over the last few months on a Windows machine, and it's significantly better than it used to be. I do generally prefer it over Chrome now.
Right. Oh, and tell you actually what I do like about Chrome.
Says a lot.
And I don't know whether a similar thing is possible on Edge, because I haven't actually used it, to be honest. But I do like Chrome extensions. And I tell you where that comes in handy. Is I use Chrome extensions. I actually mainly use two extensions. One is something called YouTube Buddy, or TubeBuddy, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, it gives you the lowdown on different YouTube videos. So it gives you all when you go to YouTube and you look at a video, it gives you all the stats right next to it. So it basically tells you a whole bunch of different things, how that video is ranking, and also how often it's been shared on different social media channels, and also where that channel's performance is in comparison to your own channel, sort of thing. So it's basically a stats kind of thing, which is super useful. It's also super useful because you can do keyword searches and comparisons, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really, really useful thing. And because it runs as an extension, it does it automatically, so it does allow you to make some informed decisions when you're uploading a video yourself and you're choosing a particular title, and you can sort of play with different keywords against each other and all that kind of stuff. So it's very useful if you're into that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for the nerds amongst us, TubeBuddy is quite a cool thing. And the other thing I use it for is for a thing called Hunter.io. And what Hunter.io does is it allows you to find email addresses. And this is a really useful thing if you're, if you're running your own photography business, and you want to get more into marketing, and you want to find email addresses of the people that you need to speak to, basically. And often it's very difficult because, it may not necessarily be obvious from a company's website. If you're a B2B type of business, you need to find somebody to speak to in a particular company. But Hunter.io allows you, it basically trawls the web and it finds email addresses, specific email addresses for you. And it also basically tells you, it can tell you the sort of base principle upon which email addresses are built for this particular company. So whether they use first name at companyname.com, for example, or whether it's initial dot surname, or whatever it may be. And so even if it can't find the exact email address that you're looking for, you can deduce very well or very precisely as to what that email address would be if you're looking for a particular person, for example. So as a research tool, this is a very, very valuable tool. It's hunter.io. And you could go onto the website and do it that way, or you can use a Chrome extension whereby it basically does the search for you. You just need to go onto that website and does all the search for you, which is really quite cool. So these Chrome extensions come in really handy. So that's kind of what I use Chrome for as well. But on a day-to-day basis, I use Safari for everything. And what I like about that is that it integrates really well with my phone. This is basically the thing.
Integrates with my phone, with my iPad.
Yeah, exactly.
All my passwords are saved in that way.
Well, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so convenient.
Yeah, and you can literally, it's one of the things I do a lot is to say I'm looking at a website on my Mac. I then, the handover thing works really well with the phone. So you then, just pick it up on the phone and...
Chrome does this too.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Right, if you're logged into Chrome.
Right.
Right, it will do that too, as far as I know. But I've been so integrated using Safari on my phone because I could never be bothered to install anything else that it just kind of made sense.
Yeah, perfect.
And I do find, particularly over the last couple of 3 years or so, that Safari's it's picked up. It's got a lot better. It's a lot quicker.
Yeah,
I think there used to be some issues with it, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, some time ago.
But yes, it's significantly improved.
The whole idea of handover is such a good idea.
Yeah, isn't it?
And of course, that's coming to iPhone and iPhone camera and FaceTime.
FaceTime, yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing in the next iOS. Is the whole FaceTime handover thing, which
I'm quite intrigued as to how it's going to work.
It's one of the things.
It's about bloody time, though.
Oh well, it's one of the things. I've been crying out for years, really, because we used as a family.
We're going to start doing it for the sake of it, aren't we?
Well, yeah, but for me, purely from a practical point of view, I use FaceTime a lot. I use FaceTime all the time, because obviously I have family in different continents and different countries, and there's a lot of FaceTiming going on all the time. Between my mom who lives in Germany, for example, and my daughter who lives with her mom throughout the week, for example. So very often what would happen is we would have a 3-way FaceTime, and I might get the call and I'm on my Mac.
Mm-hmm.
But as you then get into the conversation or whatever, into the chat, you might want to then just go and sit down on the couch because, all of a sudden you're not in a work mode anymore. And it just makes so much sense to then just pick up your phone and then hand over that call and just carry on with that call. and just chill out somewhere else in the house. I mean, it makes perfect sense because the very nature of those kind of calls is that, we, of course, you have a conversation, but we also show each other things like what, I don't know, something in the house or what the dog's doing or what's happening in the garden or any typical family stuff. And then, of course, with the phone, you can, first of all, walk around, but you can also switch camera and you can just basically show stuff. And so that happens on virtually every call. So this whole idea of being able to hand over stuff, and then, of course, also in combination with the screen sharing thing, is super, super useful.
Oh, which came relatively recently as well, didn't it?
Exactly.
I get Apple to a certain extent that, they usually wait for things to have been done to see how they do it and basically try to do it better straight away. I get that, but surely they're advanced enough these days to why don't we be the innovators? Why don't we do it first?
Well, so I think, there are a number of things. I think there's been some U-turns with Apple recently, I think. To take a big example was this whole idea of like getting rid of all headphone jacks, and all that kind of stuff, headphone inputs, outputs even. And of course, that's now, that's back on the new.
Is it?
On the Mac Airs, for example. So that's, those.
Well, that's on my MacBook.
Yeah.
I've got a headphone output on my Mac.
Yeah, but if you remember, like that went for a little while. Now it's back.
Not on the Macs, they didn't.
I think they did. Yeah.
Not on the MacBooks. I mean, my 2019 or 2018, whatever MacBook it was I had before, that had a headphone port too.
So yes, it was my 2011. But so I mean, they've made some sort of, what I'm saying is they made some U-turns in a number of ways. But I can't remember where I was going with this now. Actually, completely. Never mind. Anyway, but I actually can't remember where I was going with this.
They're the best kind. It'll come back to you in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. But they're,
That's because you had a half a shot of whiskey.
That's probably what it is. Canadian whiskey too.
Mm-hmm.
Canadian Club. The best for podcasting.
Yes.
This episode is not sponsored by Canadian Club 1858 at all.
I'll tell you what, if this was actually brewed in 1850, I'd be all right with that.
This was a...
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, was this Christmas?
I think it was, yeah. Nice.
Back in the middle.
Nice. I came dressed for the occasion, by the way.
Yeah. Like a lumberjack.
Anyway, so Apple. It's we've talked a lot about Apple. There's been a lot of news recently and stuff. So I tell you what, let's talk about something else. So this has kept me busy for the last 6 weeks or so, or probably the last 2 months. Is I've been totally obsessed with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Have you been following this?
Not really.
Right. I have had this on in the background, like radio, every day of the trial. So yeah, I've been following it.
This is like your new Clubhouse.
Every detail of it. Oh man, it was it was hilarious. And of course, there's a certain degree of a certain amount of voyeurism.
Yeah,
I guess, but it's like the other half live, I guess. It's the sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what I found very interesting was I just found the whole legal proceedings really quite interesting. Because it's I don't know about you, but I've never actually been to court.
No.
So
no.
It's it's one thing, watching courtroom dramas or something, in a movie or something, or even watching Judge Judy or something like that. Judge Judy and Executioner. But but it's another thing to actually witness all these proceedings as they happen. So I found it really quite fascinating.
Okay.
But the one thing that really stood out for me was that obviously photographs, and this is how this links to photography, by the way. Photographs played a massive role in this court case, and so bear with me for a minute. No matter whether you were an avid follower of this court case over the last couple of months, or whether you've just had enough of it and you don't want to hear about it, or whether you just generally think this is like the stupidest thing to broadcast live on YouTube, which is an argument.
Was that what they did? Was it?
Yeah, it was live on YouTube, man, on several channels.
Did you put a full stop in? Oh,
I didn't know at the time.
Cut that out of the audio.
There were no adverts. No, it was fun.
No.
Yeah, it was all live. But so photographs played an important role in this because obviously Amber Heard had, she'd taken photographs of herself and her injuries or alleged injuries, bruises, etc. And of course, they were, those photographs were analyzed by an expert. So an expert in metadata. And what that expert did was he looked at the Exif data in these photographs, because basically the idea was, to determine whether these photographs were genuine or not, or whether they had been tampered with.
Mm-hmm.
And the Exif data, I'm sure you know, but if you don't know, Exif data stands for exchangeable image file format. And this is really a whole bunch of information that's basically baked into your JPEG file or into your image file, that tells you that gives you a lot of detail about the actual image. Like, for instance, it gives you detail about the camera that was taken on, the settings of that camera, for example, and a whole bunch of other details, including time and date of the photograph and all that kind of stuff. But it also tells you whether that photograph has been processed in any other third-party software. And so the idea was basically to look at these image files and to determine whether these photographs had been tampered with or not. Because in some of those photographs, Amber Heard was seen with sort of red blotches or bruises, you call them bruises on her face. And this expert, Norbert Neumeister.
Oh, what a name.
Yeah, it's Norbert Brian Neumeister.
Really?
Well, how do you get from Norbert to Brian? I'm not sure, but hey, that's his name apparently. So he
it's like when you get through to a call center and it turns out that it's in India and Gary answers the phone.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And then the standard question: what's the weather like where you are?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, it's probably different from New Delhi. I'm not sure. But yeah, so in this particular case, anyway, this expert determined that some of those files had been at least run through a third-party software.
Does it tell you what?
Yeah, it did, and I can't remember what it was actually. But but it basically tells you, whether that photograph has been tampered with. Yeah. So
that could range from anything to converting the file format potentially to generally enhancing the image, so it's just exposure, just for argument's sake.
Yeah.
Or full-on Photoshop work potentially.
Well, exactly, and so the argument in this particular thing was case was that the third-party software that this photo had been run through acts both as sort of an image cataloging software and an image editing software. So, and the argument from Amber Heard's defense was basically, oh, well, she's just been using it as a catalog type of a thing. But there were two different exhibits that had been entered into evidence. And imagine this, they're basically the same photograph. On one photograph, the saturation and the reds had been amplified to amplify what appears to be a red bruise on her face. Okay. And on the other one, it hadn't.
Oh, right.
Okay. Now, this is where it gets super idiotic. So her defense, and this is probably why nobody actually believed her. Her defense was that in one photograph, a particular table light or something in a room was on, and in the other one it wasn't. And that one photo was taken, and then she went to turn this light on, and then took the second photograph. But when you look at the photographs, both of them, they were exactly, down to the hair, identical. And
so we're saying it was actually the same image.
It was actually the same image.
Yeah. Okay. Not taken a split second apart. It was actually the same
not
image.
Even a split second apart. It was actually the same image. Because as we all know, even if you take an image a split second apart, there will be certain differences. So this image had quite clearly been edited, and I think you could have quite easily explained that away with in a number of different ways.
I was going to swear then, but how did they screw that up so badly?
Oh, having followed this whole trial, there were a number of major screw-ups. Where, I don't know, there were a number of different issues where you could have just... I think one of the biggest problems was that and I'm not being biased or anything, but I think from Amber Heard's perspective was that she was trying to explain away a lot of things where actually she should have just held her breath and said, yeah, okay, well, I just screwed that up, and that's it. I think that would have come across as much more genuine than actually explaining away things that were inexplicable, if you know what I mean. Like, for instance, the whole thing about her donating money to a children's hospital. In a nutshell, she got $7 million in a divorce settlement, and she pledged to donate those $7 million to two organizations, a children's hospital and another institution or another organization. That's for $3.5 million each, and she only actually, I can't remember the exact amounts, but she only actually donated something in the hundreds of thousands of dollars range. And there was another, I can't remember, 500,000 or something that was donated by Elon Musk in her name. But that was it. And she insisted, not only in several TV interviews, but also during the trial, that she had donated the money, and Johnny Depp's accountants could quite clearly prove that she hadn't. And actually, when they got representatives of those two organizations on the stand, they basically attested that she hadn't. And, she then went, well, I pledged that money. And, and then when she was like pressed on it, she was like, well, we haven't donated it. When she goes, well, I have pledged it. Yeah, but you haven't donated it. Well, but I have pledged that money, but you haven't donated it. She goes, well, I use these two words interchangeably. And, and Johnny Depp's attorney went, well, I don't. And, it was those kind of things, I think, where she lost it with the jury, because they were obviously, everybody was just looking at that going, yeah, you haven't. And then, her excuse was, well, get this right, this is the best thing. Then she goes like, well, but then Johnny sued me, for all this money, because he sued her for £50 million, and then she countersued for $100 million, US dollars even, and then she countersued for $100 million, and she goes like, well, he sued me, so I couldn't donate the money, and then your attorney went, yeah, but he sued you 18 months after you got the money. So what were you doing for 18 months?
What relevance did that have to what was actually going on in this case, though? How does that pledge connect, other than so forming sort of character?
Yeah, that's basically what it was. But essentially, this was a defamation case. Amber Heard wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, basically talking about her being a victim of domestic violence, and without naming Johnny Depp, making it very clear that this is who this referred to, right? And so, anyway, and this was basically what this whole.
And she countersued.
She countersued
him based on comments his lawyer had made.
Yes, correct.
Correctly?
Yeah, correct. So
his
former lawyer had made. Yeah. She countersued, and so this whole thing was really based on who you're going to believe, and really so it was like this was by and large a character piece, and so she just didn't. I mean, well, basically, it just boiled down to the fact that the jury just didn't believe her. And following the trial, her performance on the stand wasn't particularly good.
I don't think anyone believed her before.
Well, I mean,
and I don't think anyone's ever really liked her anyway.
Well, there was a thing, of course, where Johnny Depp did lose a lot of work because of these allegations. He lost his role in the in the
Pirates.
Well, yeah, he lost his his engagement with Pirates of the Caribbean, but he also lost his thing in the Harry Potter franchise, not Harry Potter, the Beasts thing. I can't remember what it's called. Unfortunate Beasts.
Oh, I've never watched it, but it's something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, look it up if you. I can't remember. I think I've seen it once, but his financial losses were basically calculated to be in the range of $50 million, and that's what he sued her for, essentially. So for defamation and damages, and she then countersued for $100 million. But the whole thing was just, the whole thing was just incredible, or like unbelievable, the way her whole case was put together. And then that, in conjunction with her performance on the stand and the numerous times that she'd been proven to tell the untruth on the stand, I think that not only swayed the jury, but it also swayed the general public, who were obviously watching this whole thing all the way through. And so
what happens to her now? Now she's basically been proven to have lied in court.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing, actually. So she was basically, in the end, when the verdict came down, Johnny Depp was awarded $15 million, so $10 million in damages and $5 million in whatever it's called, other damages.
Why not the 50?
Yeah. So, but she then she was awarded $2 million because she, as part of her countersuit, she claimed that she was defamed by this lawyer, and the jury actually said, okay, well, there's one point where they gave 1 point to her, and essentially, so she then got $2 million. The $10 million in damages, they stand, according to Virginia law, there's sort of a limit on the other type of damage, which is like limited to like $350,000 or something. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but so anyway. Ultimately, what it boils down to, she owes him in the region of about $8 million, $7.5 to $8 million or something. That's what he could claim, and of course she can't really. It doesn't look like she can actually pay that. So,
why didn't they just do it in a different state?
So the reason why they had to basically pursue this in the state of Virginia was because the Washington Post servers, this is the op-ed, was the base of it all. The Washington Post servers are situated in the state of Virginia. That's why this cause.
Really?
Yeah, that's why this case had to be tried in Virginia.
Really? Yeah. That's surprising.
Yeah, it's because it was all based around this op-ed. That was the at the basis of this whole defamation case. And so
we're talking about the Washington Post as in Seattle, Washington.
No, the Washington Post as in Washington, D.C.
As in D.C. Post.
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't that also the Washington Post up in near Seattle?
I actually don't know. Washington State Post? I have no idea.
Could be wrong. Jeff Bezos bought it.
Oh, he did, yeah. But that would be the Washington Post situated in D.C. Or at least, I mean, their servers are clearly...
I kind of assumed it was one up... Oh, I don't know. Anyway, It doesn't really matter. But
So,
okay.
So that was those were the ins and outs of this. So it's because she was sort of proven to have basically defamed him with malice or something, and that's where these additional 5 million of damage is coming, or whatever.
Sorry.
Anyway, so
it's a nasty piece of work. That's all we know. That's all I need to know.
It's one of these things, where of course you've got these two people there. They're obviously slightly deranged and as bad as each other, but ultimately.
I think I said this before, whether this was last week or just us or to someone else. I can't remember now, but there's no smoke without fire, and I don't doubt for a second that Johnny Depp isn't completely innocent in all of this, but she's just far worse.
Well, I mean,
there's something there.
There's there is a thing, and of course, it's a really difficult subject because victims of domestic violence, have been, what's the word? I mean, have been subdued for decades and decades, or probably centuries, and this is a time where I think, as a society, we've opened up to actually listen to those voices, which is a really, really positive thing. But there is a danger, as always with these things, that can also that can lead to some people abusing the system. It can be abused,
right?
Yeah,
like anything.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think the reality is, if anything, then. If you believe that Johnny Depp was actually the abused in this case, and Amber Heard was the abuser, if you believe that to be true, and let's just assume for a minute that that's what actually happened, okay, then this really just shines a light on the fact that men can also be victims of domestic violence, and as much as as much as I really honestly believe that the Me Too movement, has done a lot for women's rights and women's voices to be heard and everything. But, we shouldn't forget that we're talking about victims of domestic abuse, regardless of their gender, ultimately. And, and I think that's the important part. What's worrying in this is that for some reason there's sort of there's a subgroup of people who think that Amber Heard should have kind of won this, despite the fact that she's quite obviously been lying in court. And of course, when you look at a legal system as such, then you really only have a case if you can, if you can prove that you have a case. And if you're found to be lying, then you just simply don't have a case. That's
pretty much it, right?
That's pretty much it, exactly. So, and that's ultimately what it boiled down to. And there's been
even if you take the photo thing just as an example, there is an argument to say that was edited because she felt her evidence was so slim that she felt she needed to bolster it a little bit, just to help make the point of what had actually happened. And I actually don't believe any of it, but just playing devil's advocate.
Well, of course, the difference. I think the difference in attitudes when you compare both of them on the stand was that Johnny Depp really, I mean, regardless of what you think of him, he really owned all of it on the stand. So when he was asked about his drug addiction and and all that kind of stuff, he's
honest about it all.
He absolutely owned it.
Seemed to be right.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a real difference in terms of character.
the other issue you have with these type of individuals is that how long has he been acting?
Well, he's had a career that spans probably the best part of 35 years.
Don't get me wrong. I'm if I have to pick sides here, I'm on his side of all of this, but you have to wonder how much his ability to act and comes into it.
To be honest with you, I was watching Amber Heard on the stand, and in subsequent interviews, actually, just a very recent interview that's just come out this morning. To be honest with you, that's the worst acting I've ever seen.
Oh, she's shocking.
Honestly, without prejudice or whatever, but if somebody says to me like, "Oh, she acted on the stand," and that was the shittiest acting I've ever seen because it was really terrible, So, she's really then arguing.
What her issue is that the foundation. Well, I'll say it anyway. But the foundation of a good lie is that it absolutely sits in the truth. It has to be on a bed of a complete bed of truth. Otherwise, it will completely fall down, and you won't be able to see it through. You just won't. So it has to be built on truth. Otherwise, you're screwed. You will be seen, and I pride myself on my ability to pick out lies and not truth, and I built a career on it for a very long time.
Yes,
actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
the fraud sleuth.
Yeah, and it's just part of it. But if you can build it totally on truth, you're much more unlikely to A, give something away, and B, be probed in such a way that someone else will find a flaw in your story.
Yeah, the thing, I think one thing that stuck out for me in this was, the minute she lost, there was a lot of like, oh, this is a terrible, terrible day for the Me Too movement and for women in general.
Did she say that?
Yeah, she did say that.
Of course she did.
Yeah,
of course she did. Yeah.
What it means to for women and all the rest of it. But actually, when I thought about this, I thought, actually, quite the opposite is true.
I won't give you too much.
Quite the opposite is true
because I give myself a lot.
Because Johnny Depp's lawyer, was it a
sign of a quality bottle of whiskey, screwed up.
Well.
Actually, my favourite whiskey is a screw top. Just saying.
So yeah, Johnny Depp's lawyer was fantastic, and if anything,
I hear that. Yeah,
and if anything, that was really a shining light, and an absolute, somebody to look up for, to look up to, when it comes to women being able to achieve amazing things in, for instance, in a legal career, So, I'd like to say, or I'd like to think that quite the opposite is true. This is a really great example for the opportunities or the things that you can achieve, even if you think that you might be disadvantaged as a woman, which in my mind, I don't think like that. I just think you're ultimately judged on your
what you do or you're not
on your ability. Yeah, but okay, But in any event, I think this that was it's a great example, and a great endorsement for for women in the legal profession, for example. So yeah, I'm just not buying the whole thing. It's basically if you lie in court, you lie in court. I mean, you're still a liar. So, yeah. That's the thing. Anyway, so there you go.
We got slightly diverted there.
Not taking sides
because that never happens
but
on
actually
this show.
Totally taking sides anyway. Yeah, so the Johnny Depp thing. I tell you what, there were a couple of other things that I came across that really made me chuckle. So first of all, we've got a new contender Well, not a contender. The world's most expensive camera has just gotten a whole lot more expensive.
Go on. Really?
Yes, because
I haven't read the news for a while.
In a recent auction, the world's most expensive camera is now. What type of camera do you think it might be?
Let's go with
It's not a Fuji.
It's not a Fuji.
What do you think?
Is it a D750?
Yes.
No, give me another chance. Is it No.
An Olympus.
Yeah, Olympus.
It's a Ricoh.
Yeah. Leica.
It's a Leica.
Of course it's a Leica.
Of course it is. Well, so the most expensive camera as of late is the $15 million worth of Leica O series, model number 105.
Oh, it's a snappy name.
Oh, yes. Okay, so what it is, it's a very specific, it's a very, very specific, model of that camera. So the Leica O series, this particular one was actually Oscar Bernach's personal camera. And so just for you...
So that's what the price tags.
So basically, so this camera is actually unique. And it's unique because it comes from a batch of 23 O series prototypes that were made in 1923. And they were basically made to test the market. And they really came out 2 years before the Leica A series. And really only 12 of those prototypes survive. And this one particular one was the personal camera of Oscar Bernach, who was actually the inventor of the Leica. And he personally used this particular camera, model number, or series number 105, until 1930. So this particular camera is a fixed lens camera that really, that went into auction, and it fetched a fetching price of $15 million.
Wow.
There you go. Could have only ever been a Leica, right?
So maybe if you hang on to your D750 for a while.
So a Nikon from
keep using it.
Yeah. So Nikon from 1923 is probably worth like what, £5?
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so yeah.
Wow, I'll have two.
As they say on on another podcast that we're very fond of, El Leica. But there you go.
You ever shot anything on Leica before?
Yeah, I have actually.
You have?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I never have. I'd love to.
Yeah, my what do you call it? My father-in-law has a Leica. Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, no, it's not my father-in-law. What am I saying? It's my godfather. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I have shot a little bit. I mean, not really, but I've had a little bit of experience with Leica.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to go where I go.
Yes, I mean, to be absolutely honest with you, there's something I really prefer about Fujis to Leicas.
Okay.
And it's just the haptic, like the mechanical wheels and dials, Leicas are very, and this really has, I'm not talking about image quality or anything like that. I'm just purely talking about the way
physical
the
use
camera,
of it.
the physical feel of it, right? Leicas are very, we're talking about, modern digital mirrorless Leicas. They're very clean, and a very clean design. And I know this can be very attractive to a lot of people, absolutely, without a doubt. But I just like, personally, I just like that, the feel of something that feels a bit more retro. You know what I mean? And that's just it, really. Simple as that.
Maybe we should go try them both out.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And, from what I've seen, I'm sure, image quality is fantastic and all that kind of stuff. 100%. It's just from actually, there's something that happens, and I've realized this again when I went to Portsmouth a few days ago, where I took my little Fuji. It's just something fun about it. I want to take this camera out. It's fun. You know what I mean? It's like, I just love holding it. I love taking pictures with it. I love playing around with it. It's very different.
This is interesting, and I think this is actually really important because I think it makes a huge difference to the photos you end up taking.
The fact that you end up taking photos in the first place, actually.
Right, R6, right? R6. I've been using it more and more and more and more and more and more, as much as I possibly can. And I like it. I like shooting with it. I don't love it at all.
Right.
Not even close.
Right.
I don't pick it up and get excited. Right. I don't pick it up and think, whatever I'm going to point this at, I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm going to love what I'm about to do with this. I don't feel that at all.
Right.
Not even close.
Right.
And that worries me a little bit because I think that's affecting what I do.
Oh,
because I've just got this this feeling, and it's not that it doesn't take a good image, because it does take a good image.
It's fantastic, yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It's I haven't really put my finger on it. Really, I don't know if it's just the way it feels, or the EVF. It took me ages to find that word. Or whether it's what the EVF shows me is not true to what actually I'm going to pull back on my machine.
Right.
And that just makes it feels very digital. I can't explain it any other way. It feels very cold, even though I don't mean warm versus cold. I don't mean your white balance and you're on it. That's not what I mean. But if the image feels cold, and I can't really describe it much better than that at the moment.
There's a thing. So this is why I really enjoyed.
And I get this with video on it too. And I struggle. It takes a lot of work to get it looking all right.
So there's a thing.
But then I have also been spoiled with the C70 video. So,
but the thing is, like, I tell you, the difference between using my Nikon in a studio situation and using the Fuji when I'm out and about, is when I use the Nikon, I get amazing results in the studio, under artificial lighting. Like, I love the detail I get in the images. I just love the contrast. I love the flexibility of the files as well. So, in retouching, for example, you can just, like, they're malleable. You know what I mean? You can really pull them in many different ways. And you can be pretty much guaranteed that you've got all the detail where it matters, and the end results are stunning. It's not the most fun camera to use, but the results are awesome. Okay. With the Fuji, I've really enjoyed shooting JPEGs because it's like, using color profiles, for example, because it's this thing where you look through the EVF and, you can tell whether your scene is exposed well or not, or whatever, right? Okay. But then when you click the button and you look at the back of the screen, well, especially actually when you upload it to your phone or to your computer or whatever, it's you don't. I mean, looking through the EVF really doesn't give you really any idea as to what the final image is going to look like, what the colors are going to look like, and all the rest of it. But when you actually then see it, it's a little bit. It's like a little bit of. It's just this sense of amazement that you used to get when you used to drop off a film to get developed to the lab, and then you get it back, and like you open the envelope and you take the pictures out and you go, oh, that's what that looks like. You know, there's this little bit of this element of wonder. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I really enjoyed it. Rather than thinking, so this is very different. It's not like, okay, I've got this file, now I've got to retouch it, you know, I've got to edit it, and I know I can now turn it into something. It's like, no, this is the thing, this is the end product. It's this JPEG where everything's baked in. And I really, really enjoy that because it just, I don't know, it's just a different thing. And, you know, when you combine that with the fact that I just love the way the Fuji feels, you know, I love the fact that it's got a fixed lens there. I can't change the lenses on it. I don't have to worry about any of that. Yeah. You know, putting that into my backpack basically means I have to worry about nothing. I don't have to worry about, like, oh, which lenses am I going to take, you know? And then when I'm out and about, I don't have to worry about, oh, which lens should I use for this, you know?
That's it.
And then fish around in your backpack to find the other lens and, like, you know, put it on and all that kind of stuff. None of that. It's literally just, you get this thing in your hand and it's just fun to use, you know? And it's a different experience, you know, and of course it's different horses for different courses.
It is. And with the R6, you know, I get a different feeling when I use the screen than I do using the viewfinder.
Oh,
but I actually don't like taking photos with the screen unless I have to. Mm-hmm. It comes in incredibly handy on occasion, actually.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I just like looking through the viewfinder to take photos.
Yeah,
generally, it just feels more natural to me. But I don't enjoy that experience at all, and it's actually starting to wind me up a little bit to the point where I'm going, I really want to take all that many photos with it right now. At times I'd rather just pick up my phone, and I do as well. Here's a question for you, and this is perhaps my lack of understanding with mirrorless and EVFs and however these work. But when I'm looking through the EVF, it will show me an image based on the lens's lowest f-stop. So if that's 2.8, it will show me the image with the depth of field of a 2.8 lens. If I crank it to f8 or f6, whatever it might be, it will not change the depth of field in my image. I need to hold a button for it to show me that. Okay? Which in itself isn't a big issue. But when you're floating around trying to do things quickly, actually often if I'm out and about, I'll just leave it at F8 and just be stuck with it if I'm outside. Anyway, but that's just what I do. But I've actually taken to recently, if I'm out and about and I'm not out on a photography trip, I'm just out taking photos and just I'm not stressing about it. I'm just having fun. I've actually been sticking it in aperture priority mode.
Yeah.
Auto ISO
totally.
As well.
100%.
And I'm just adjusting the aperture to fit the situation, whether that's aesthetically or whether it's I need to force the exposure a little bit differently or whatever. I don't know, whatever it might be. Yeah. And I'm doing that. But right. But I'm not seeing the image that I'm actually getting from that without having to hold this bloody button down.
Well, I don't know how.
I don't know if they're all like that, or whether it's just the R6 or Canon, or it's just my lack of understanding around
to be honest, I'm not sure if this might be a Canon thing because I don't really have much experience with Canon mirrorless cameras. I wouldn't be able to tell. In fact, if you're listening to this and you got
this far,
if you got this far, and you do know, It'd be super interesting. Please comment on the video or send us a message or something, because that would be something that I'm sure.
If we've got questions about it, I'm sure there are many people who've got questions.
Yeah.
It's just something that bugs me.
I mean, talking about, this is an interesting point, actually, aperture priority. So what I tend to do when obviously, when I shoot in the studio, everything's manual, clearly.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be any other way. But when I'm out and about, especially with the Fuji, I do use automation, if you want to call it that, quite a lot. So the way I normally set my camera up is essentially that I use auto ISO, but I set 3 different programs for auto ISO.
Mm-hmm.
So I essentially have an auto ISO thing that goes from 200 to 1600, and I have a second setting that goes from 1600 to, I don't know, 6400 or something, and then another one that goes from 6400 to whatever, 12,800, whatever the maximum is. And so really, it's essentially, if I'm outside, I use one setting. If I'm indoors, I use another setting. And if it's really dark at night or something, I use the third setting. That's all, and what that does is it just limits the ranges in which the auto ISO will function. Okay. Then that basically means I can...
If it maxes out on that range, does it then move to the shutter speed and bring that down before it...
No, basically, so the way
it will underexpose it.
So the way I set it is essentially I set... I literally set it to auto ISO so that... and this is the only automated setting I use. So basically, I'll adjust... I make a decision on the aperture and on the shutter speed. And I let the ISO do what it needs to do. And when it hits the limit, I'll be able to tell in the viewfinder, because you have the light meter there. I'll see if I can't, you'll just be able to tell whether you can get the exposure right or not. So, for instance, a good situation is when you're like, we went to the Tate Gallery, or the Tate Modern, and took some pictures outside, and then we moved inside. It's a big entrance, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Tate Modern, but it's like a massive ramp, essentially.
Yeah.
It's really wide. There's a lot of lights, but you're indoors, and it has an impact on your exposure. And although with the naked eye, especially if it's maybe a little bit overcast outside, it may appear as though there's similar exposure values when you first come into the main hall, but they really aren't. And, the camera will tell you that. And so you then very quickly start underexposing because you're hitting the limits of your ISO range. And so then it's basically 2 flicks with a thumb, and I just switch it to the next auto ISO setting that I've got. So that's kind of how I think. Then when it's evening or it's nighttime or something, I have the third, so more extreme ISO range that I use for that. But basically, I'll essentially make a decision on the aperture, and then I rein it in with the shutter speed. Yeah, that's really all it is. So, not too dissimilar from you. Basically, when I'm generally, like, we're walking along the Thames River, along the South Bank, f8 works really well. I think when we were there the second day, it was like a super sunny day. So it was more like, we're talking like f11, because it was really, really bright. And then, your shutter speed might be around 500. Sometimes it's about 250. Sometimes it's more than that. I mean, it just depends, on the situation. But you can quite easily just, with a flick of your thumb, change, bring the exposure back in. And you don't really have to, and I also like to play with the aperture sometimes, and of course on the F100 series, the aperture basically is like an aperture ring, so it's like you're gonna flick.
So that's interesting. See, this is interesting, right? Because I knew that, and that this was going to be my question: is when do you use that? Because I find myself using aperture more. Mostly because it sits under my finger perfectly, and I find that the easiest thing to adjust without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be holding my camera, and because the aperture's directly under my my index finger, that's the easiest thing for me to adjust quickly and accurately without even thinking about it. Even though if I just raise my thumb a little bit, I've got it on the shutter. If I take my thumb down a little bit, I've got it on a Canon. It's on the wheel on the back, or on the lenses, the RF lenses. You've got the additional dial on the lens, which you can set to ISO as well. So I find myself using aperture more for pure convenience.
And, there's a lot to be said for that. On the X100 series, nothing is easy. It's all a faff,
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but it's all very haptic. Everything responds to your touch. So it's a lot more effort because you got to get your hand around the lens and grab the aperture ring and all that kind of stuff. But when you move it, there's a satisfaction to it because the way it feels, the way it sounds, there's just it's the same with the shutter speed dial. There really is a certain satisfaction to it. You just want to use it, and it's awkward and all the rest of it, but it's fun. It's really fun. And so I like changing the aperture because I just like the way that feels, and the way it sounds and all the rest of it. And so I like taking the camera out for that reason, just because I can move these dials around. There's a difference there because and we've talked about this many times, and I'm sure many listeners and viewers will have the exact same experience. It's this thing where you have a camera in your backpack, but and you go on a trip or whatever, but you feel like you never actually take it out to take any pictures, and so as an end result, you come back with very few pictures.
And this is like what it's like when I was in Santorini recently.
Right.
Is I took 35mm only, deliberately. There were occasions where I wish I'd had something else, but they were rare.
Yeah.
I've gone through a load of those photos and I've cropped in a lot on some of them. And this doesn't have the biggest megapixel count anyway. It was R6 20, I think it is. So it's not big, it's not a lot. But where are these photos going, really?
Yeah, Facebook. Probably.
Not mine. Not my. I don't put my holiday photos on Facebook.
Do you not?
No. They're for me. They're going to be sitting on the screen. The odd one I might print up at some point. Not going to be big prints though. So it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Oh.
So 35mm, how tiny that is perfect.
Yeah. Because
guess what you can still do with a 35mm on a full frame? Hold it at arm's length and do a selfie if you really want to.
For sure.
And I can me and Paula, we can get us both in that. No problems.
Yeah.
No problems. If it was like a 30mm, it'd be perfect for that. But 35 is fine. So why mess around? Because what's going to happen? Yeah. Whoever you're with, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get all pissed off because you're there faffing, taking lenses out and changing it. And guess what happens? The moment's gone and they don't really care if you take the picture anymore of them standing on that rock near the sea. They don't care anymore.
Yeah, when the moment is gone, the moment's gone.
So just take the shot and be done with it. Just be happy with what you've got.
That's, of course, where phones come in really handy because there's not much, there's no zero setting up other than actually getting the camera app up.
Yeah.
And you can capture the moment, which ultimately is what it's all about, really. A lot of the time. But I was thinking about this. I actually had a thought when I was driving here, because some time ago I got hold of this 35mm manual lens. So it's a 35mm Nikon manual lens, 2.8, which is a good 40 years old, right? And I got hold of it as part of a bunch of Nikon film cameras that I got hold of, and I it's the same mount, So I plonked it on my 750. I loved the results that I got with that lens, and I kind of thought, wow, this is an awesome little lens. And I would love to take that lens and actually just try it out and do some, I don't know, street photography with it, for example, right? And every time I go, for the last few months, every time I've been in a situation where I've gone into London or had an opportunity to do some street photography, I thought, ooh, maybe this might be a good opportunity to take my D750 and that lens, or take the Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, every time I've gone, that Fuji's way too much fun. I don't want to leave it. I don't want to leave it behind.
Yeah.
So, and this is the thing. And really, it comes back to like different horses for different courses, of course. But if you can find something that really excites you to take pictures, and something that really gets you excited about taking pictures and about photography and stuff like that, then it just makes perfect sense to take advantage of that.
Couldn't agree more.
And it could be instant photos. I got really excited when I got that Instax camera. I love that thing. That's just such a cool thing. It's such a cool thing because, again, like you take a picture and you have to wait. Right? It's called Instax, but it's really not instant. So you gotta wait, like, I don't know. I mean, realistically, you gotta wait about 15 minutes until you can see the full contrast in the image. But it only just takes a couple of minutes for it to actually show up.
I've still got a shot you took of me over on my bookcase over there.
Yeah. Oh. What's really cool about this is it's not only the whole process. There's so many limiting factors in it. The fact that you only have 10 shots per film, for example, or, the fact that there's no autofocus, you know what I mean? There's no focus, but, and the fact that you have to wait for the picture to develop, these are all limiting factors in a sense, but that's what the beauty is. And the most beautiful thing about the Instax camera, or any Polaroid camera or something, instant film, is the fact that you can take a picture and you can give it to somebody and it means something. It's a physical thing. And, the amount of times that I've taken a picture, like, just say for an example, I took a picture of me and my mom, or my mom and me, when I dropped her off at Heathrow Airport, right? As she was about to fly back to Germany. And, and then I gave her that picture. And then when I got to Germany recently, I saw that she'd got that picture, in a really nice little, so she's made this little clamp thing, which is really cool. And it's on her like living room couch table. And it's like, that's really cool because that picture just means a lot to her, And that's what photography can do, These things can mean something. And I think that's often forgotten when, we take a gazillion photos on a phone or on digital cameras or whatever, is that, photography can mean something. And whether it's the actual picture in the form of a print, for example, or an instant photo, or whether it's the process of taking it, where we just have a camera that we really love the feel of, or that we really love using or something, these are like things that mean something and that are important. And whichever way we get there, that's the sort of thing to treasure.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I got like a really awesome like digital camera, like a professional in inverted commas camera. Of course, I loved taking pictures with that. It was just so much fun. But I still love it. I still love taking pictures in the studio, and all that kind of stuff. And I still love retouching. And when I see the finished article, I kind of think, wow, this is freaking awesome because, that started with thin air. Do you know what I mean? But there's so many different, this is the beauty of photography, of course, is that there's so many different aspects, just like music, actually. There's so many different aspects and so many different ways that you can get that kind of satisfaction, that so many different avenues to explore, that it's just, it's just, it's just the most beautiful thing in the world, which incidentally is why we're doing this podcast. Clearly, obviously. And if you've made it this far, then I'm pretty sure you agree, because why would you be listening to this up to this point,
And on that terrible disappointment.
I'll tell you what, one more thing, actually. That's one more thing.
Make it quick, I'm tired.
One more thing. Okay, so I read something the other day. Let's change tack for a minute. There's news that came out of New York City that I actually thought was awesome, because get this, the New York State Assembly has made a new law that basically awards or supports freelancers. And what it does is basically that now, if you are a New York-based freelance photographer, if you do any job over $250, by law, you now have to have a contract. And by law, that contract has to state payment terms. So what that means is, although you're a freelancer, you now have the security of actually working on a contract and having regulated payment terms, where if you basically agree realistic payment terms, and and if that's not part of the contract, then by law the payment terms will be 30 days. So it basically means that you're guaranteed to get paid after 30 days. Which for freelancers, that's a huge win, because that's always been one of the issues. Of course, as all freelancers know, you're sort of kind of, to a degree, you're in no man's land when it comes to that, and your clients very often can take the proverbial mick, and you'd be waiting on your money for a long time. Incidentally, one of the situations I'm in at the moment, because I have a job where I'm working. That I completed like 2 months ago, and I still haven't seen the money for that. But that's a huge win for freelancers, and companies are now prohibited from taking advantage of that, or retaliate, because they could be facing a penalty of up to $25,000.
Good,
which is decent, I should say.
But people will get paid in a timely fashion for things that they have rightly should be paid for.
Well, exactly.
Rather than being taken advantage of.
Well, exactly. And, that's really something, that's the sort of thing I would love to see.
Well, it's one of those that over time that will expand across the US, I'm sure, to probably at least relevant places.
Will it expand to the UK is what I'm wondering.
Well,
probably not under this government, but...
Who knows? Seems unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah,
we love you, Boris. You're brilliant.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
That's the definitive thumbs down from this side.
He's a cock monkey.
Oh, well.
Anyway.
Oh, well. But yeah, that's some good news there at the end.
Absolutely. And again, on the terrible disappointment that is Boris Johnson.
Well, you've heard it here first.
Yeah, first.
Like many things. Anyway, that being said, we have come to the end of episode 109 of the Camera Shake podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard...
I enjoyed it very much.
Oh, very much, yes. Absolutely. Be reminded that if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can find us in full Technicolor over on YouTube. Please leave a comment, leave a like, follow us. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Drop in, leave a comment, say hello. We always love to.
Absolutely.
Always love to comment. So,
and it's now almost the next day here.
Oh, it is. My watch is already switched to sleep.
It's told you to go to bed.
Yeah, well,
about 2 hours ago.
About 2 hours, yeah. Anyway, episode 109. See you next Thursday.